Joining us right now to discuss all of this is Dr. Scott Gottlieb, former FDA commissioner, CNBC contributor. He also serves, of course, on the boards of Illumina and Pfizer. His latest op-ed in the Wall Street Journal discusses how businesses can create guidelines to get employees back to the office. Scott, we're back to the topic du jour of what companies can do to get people vaccinated, because there are still a number of people who have not been vaccinated or not taking the second shots. I know we've talked about this for months. You know that I've advocated for a long time that they require it. I'm telling you that I'm starting to hear, by the way, from CEOs who are saying, you know what, we might actually now have to have that discussion about requiring it, in part because while we're seeing a lot of great uptake, there's still enough people out there to make people who have taken it uncomfortable. What do you think?
Yeah, and there was a recent survey of businesses that said that upwards of 60% were considering mandating the vaccine at work. We'll see where the businesses end up when they bring most of their employees back in the fall. I still think that we're going to continue to chip away and get more people vaccinated over the course of the summer. We're about at 145 million people who've had at least one dose right now. I think we'll pick up 5 to 10 million when 12 to 17 gets authorized, when the kids get authorized. And I think we'll continue to chip away at the adults. You know, the rate of vaccination is going to fall off, but even if we can continue to pick up 500,000 new people a day between now and the end of the summer, you know, we may get to 180 million, 170 million people vaccinated, and then pick up some more as people head back to work in the fall. We're getting to levels that are pretty good. You know, we're not going to get everyone vaccinated. If we can get 2/3 of the population vaccinated, or a little bit better than that, that's going to be a pretty good level of protection.
But are you of the view that once we do get to those levels, that the corporations should feel okay mandating it? I mean, there was a view, as you know, and we've talked about, encourage, and see where it goes. But is there a point at which you think companies can say to their employees, okay, now you actually have to do it?
It cuts both ways. I think the mandates are going to be more compelling to businesses if they find that a low percentage of their employees are vaccinated, or if they're in businesses in operations where they're customer-facing and they want to be able to advertise that a high percentage or 100% of their employees are vaccinated, so if they're a customer-facing business. But if businesses survey their employees and find that 95% of them are vaccinated, I doubt that those businesses are going to contemplate mandates, because at that point you have enough immunity in the population of people coming to work every day that the likelihood of having a big outbreak in the office is extremely small. You could see situations, again, we've talked about this, where businesses implement measures where people who aren't willing to say that they've been vaccinated. So that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about people who are willing to provide evidence that they've been vaccinated and people who aren't. So for people who aren't willing to provide that evidence, they may have to undergo symptom scans, maybe routine testing. So there may be two lanes to work. There may be some additional requirements if people aren't willing to bring forward that evidence. But if a lot of businesses find that a high percentage of their employees are vaccinated, I think that's going to take the pressure off them, not put the pressure on them to implement a mandate.
Scott, what kind of systems do you think we need to put in place to try to make sure that those who are scheduled for a second dose that aren't getting the second dose come back?
You know, the pharmacies are doing a pretty good job of trying to implement reminders for those patients. A lot of times it's just lost to follow-up. It's not people who are deliberately not coming back. There are some situations I've talked to people who are worried about the second dose, the side effects that are purportedly associated with the second dose versus the first dose. But right now, the percentage of people who've come back for that second shot is pretty high. If you look at comparable, vaccinations like the shingles vaccine, which requires 2 doses, the number of people who get lost to follow-up is actually higher than what we're seeing right now with the COVID vaccine. Now, as we get into younger populations, you're probably going to see compliance fall off, and that's in part because younger people know that they're deriving a more robust immune response just from the first dose versus an older individual who really needs that second dose to derive the full immune protection. Now, my advice to anyone would be that even if you're young and there's evidence that you derive a robust immune response just from that first dose, we don't know the durability of that response. And so if you really want to get a durable effect from the vaccine, you really should get the second dose. But the number of people that so far that we've seen not coming back for the second dose is low relative to historical standards or historical norms. And we're not certain that those people aren't going to eventually come back. Some of them will eventually come back. They just didn't come back on time.
All right.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.